It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. Welcome back, gentlemen, for another podcast. We got Chad Juttner here, Peter Lawrence.
Hi there.
And joining us again, Brian Gannis.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
It's always a privilege.
We tried to come up with a podcast topic, but we're also overwhelmed that we're like, let's just talk about being overwhelmed. And so that's what we're going to chat about.
None so far.
No, but we got to keep it short because I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah, let's not waste time. All right, so I got, every day is a new batch of to-dos and surprises every week, and it adds up. And, you just have days. Monday mornings, like I've scheduled my panic attack for 9:30 a.m. and then my recovery for 9:45, and then 10 o'clock I can get back to it and prioritize things. But, Chad, what, you had a 20-hour day last week?
It was 2 weeks ago. I was up it was 4 a.m. till midnight, I think. And, it gets to be a lot, I wouldn't recommend too many of those.
Do you feel like you were more productive at midnight than you were at 4 a.m. or more productive at midnight than you were at 4 a.m. the next day?
I was, I don't know, by the end of the day, you start to get motivated to just get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So time kind of bends in on itself like a Mobius strip, right? So you don't necessarily know anymore. You're just, kind of swimming through different issues. And it's, I guess, relatively unavoidable to a degree.
So once it was done, once it was all over, once the clock struck midnight and you had called it good for now. Yep. What does that feel like?
It feels, I can't really explain it, right? Because I had to get up at 4 a.m. the next morning to check on everything that I...
So you really just all right, right to bed.
I was, I went right to bed. I had a drink first, and then I went to bed. And then you started over at 4 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
And hope that one doesn't go till midnight. It didn't. Next day was just a handful of hours, a manageable amount of hours. But
right.
We've had a lot of those 60, 70-hour weeks.
Yeah,
are not uncommon for me anymore. But it really just, there's one guy that gets really confused by it. What are you doing?
So Brian, in your role, you work with a lot of people that can get overwhelmed. Do you find that overwhelming?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I would say I just got off a phone call where someone is absolutely feeling overwhelmed. We just did a pretty large release with my client, and we all knew going in that we were rushing things, and we knew there was going to be a lot of tech debt that had to be cleaned up. And now it's time. We are now about to really confront all of that, and we're starting to look at all the code that we put together and everything that has to get fixed. And it's stressing people out because you are looking at what feels like an insurmountable amount of work that has to be done before we can implement any new features, which everyone is excited about. And we know that we're going to have to balance out not only doing all the analysis to figure out what all has to get done, we're going to then have to balance out all the exciting new features people want to implement, along with all the tech debt we have to clean up. And this is basically our first day of doing this, and it's hard not to get stressed out and emotional, and that's exactly what's happening.
You want to change it all right away, go fix all the tech debt, get it all out of there right away, and you know that that's not right.
Yep.
What I found is, okay, now that I've looked at the mountain and freaked out, I have to look at, okay, there's a pebble I can take care of. I'm going to take care of that pebble, and I'm going to take care of this thing. And then you kind of have to ease your way back into it to where you're making progress.
Yep.
On something. If you have so much to do, it's where do I even begin? And the other part I find, this is me, someone comes in and says, hey, what can I help you with? I don't know, do something. I can't tell you. I'm so focused on this stuff to stop and context switch into onboarding mode in that moment. And it's you need to ask for help more. It's I can't always ask for help because I'm in it. Yeah.
That's an aspect of situations that we find ourselves in that maybe we could start getting a little bit better on. And I think Brian and I are on a committee trying to help. When folks ask me that same question, like, I don't want them, I'm already drained, right? Like I'm tapped out. I don't want any more mental load put on myself. What would be useful, for folks is that when you want to offer to help somebody that is overwhelmed, be it with the amount of tasks or the amount of hours or anything, just have a menu, right? Like I would love for somebody to send me a menu and just say, hey, circle the thing that you need right now. And if the thing that you need from right now is for me to like leave you the hell alone, that's an option. More often, I think it would be nice if we could recognize when folks are in this state and just do things, right? And really little things matter in these cases. Like dumb things matter.
Plays into a third factor that I kind of wanted to throw out there as well, is that not only do we have to go through this process of understanding all the work we need to do, we are often not the ultimate decision makers on who decides what work has to be done. And so now you have to do all that analysis, and then you need to go explain it to someone who probably has far less knowledge, if not just technical knowledge, of the situation that you are trying to resolve. And you have to be able to justify it and argue for it. So not only do you have to do all the analysis, you have to get passionate about it so that you can argue to someone as to why that has to get done over these other things that people are excited about. And it's mentally exhausting. It's a marathon you're running every single day just to try and justify the things you're stressed about doing.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for me too, is like the amount of times that I have to re-explain, right? Like if there were, and this is sometimes where I get a little maybe notoriously salty about frameworks and methodologies and blah, blah, blah. And if I hear the word mindset on a certain day, I am literally going to just freaking blow my top, right? All of these, and I totally get that I could use a little training, education, blah, blah, blah. But like there are certain days where like you hear a certain thing and you're just I'm gonna snap, I'm gonna lose it. Like if you tell me that I just need to get in a delivery mindset or like blah blah blah, dude, I'm just trying to get to tomorrow, right? Stop saying like these 0-calorie nonsense words to me as if that's going to change the reality of what I'm dealing with right now.
Since you cannot,
it's really hard when that isn't a two-way street too. Like I'm asking my developers to get into a delivery mindset. They don't ask me to get into a coding mindset. It's not on my plate. It's not something I have to worry about. And so that's always something I try to balance out, is I try to get the explanations from them so I can go be that advocate on their behalf. I often have to dip into their technical knowledge and bring them into the conversation still, but any little step there can be helpful. But yeah, it's not a two-way street in many cases. The engineers, the developers, you really are expected to do it all in many situations, and I can't even imagine how overwhelming that must get for people.
Yeah, and I think it gets to a point where, like, and this is where, again, I could change my thinking a little bit, and I'm not going to use the one word that I have grown to hate, but like, there is a point.
I really want to hear the word now.
There is a point, like in my case, like it's twofold, right? Like it's what you're talking about, Brian, with the amount of just individual little tasks that you've got to accomplish and the number of people that you have to explain these things to and get approvals from. All of that is one thing, and then you tack on to that the number of hours that you've gone through, and after the number of hours you've put in a given week. And it gets to a point where like words start to really, really matter. And if I hear the wrong one from the wrong person at the wrong time, I will, we'll have a little adventure, that person and I.
It sounds like to synergize your paradigms with your team and fluff. Unless it's useful, like if you have
probably the most helpful.
If you actually have something for me, let me know. Chad loves platitudes. And
it's been one of my like biggest things. Is it seems a lot of the times like when you're the most stressed, I mean, you do hear a lot of things like
just hang in there, man, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Dude, like all I need is send me some chicken nuggets and some hot fries, right? Like that's what's gonna need.
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, Chad.
Or one chicken nugget.
Right.
Exactly. Right. I used to do this with when I was when I had a lot more control over every aspect of a product that I was delivering. You can recognize in folks like when they are getting to a certain state, and you can empathize with them. thanks to the magic of DoorDash and all the delivery services we have right now, like I used to do this to kids all the time. I just drop ship a stupid amount of chicken McNuggets to their front door. Like, hey man, go look at your front door. There's 200 chicken McNuggets with you, waiting for you with like all of the sauces. And it's like, yeah, it costs like $40, and just over, like, for the right guy, that's just overjoyed, right?
Yeah.
And super wasteful because
Jill came into my office yesterday, took out my trash, and I almost cried. It was like, a good deed in a weary world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small
Any
things.
kind of help.
I mean, I think that goes back to your menu idea, Chad, where you were talking about, what things can you help? And sometimes that is answer all the other questions. I will take this. I can answer questions about this problem, but you take the other ones for right now, and I'll come back to pick those up later. Another thing that you said, Chad, was control. And when you're getting overwhelmed, sometimes that's because you didn't have enough control in the first place. Set the deadline to, make choices about technology or any of 1,000 other things, right? They're just out of your control.
To a certain degree, you are correct. But like also, I mean, the deadline thing is probably the biggest thing there, right? Like,
well, it's hard, yeah.
I wouldn't choose to work 70 hours. I don't think SDG minds too much when I do, but the ability to set deadlines, like, what are we trying to do, right? Like, we're consultants. We're trying to deliver products. We're trying to deliver solutions. We're trying to do all of this stuff, and we're given deadlines based on estimates that hopefully we've had input into. And when those become inflexible, then we at SDG try our darndest to still do it.
Yeah.
And
even for those not at SDG, you try your darndest, right? You've been at companies and just tried really hard to make something work.
I don't love disagreeing with you, Peter, because usually we are perfectly aligned. But if I were a badged employee on a ridiculous timeline, without the financial incentive to when I throw in more than 40 and only a deadline, I'll hang out for maybe 50 hours a week. But why?
And it can't be the normal. That's what I run into is I have a hard time like determining when I need, like, when will you need an extra set of hands? When will you, like, when is your job too big for one person? It's like, well, geez, golly. I mean, I've been working 60 hours a week for 2 years. And it's like, so 2 years ago was the time that you needed a hand.
I think it's also unfair to perpetually ask people that question. Let's start identifying it as the decision makers, start identifying it earlier and stop asking. I don't want to know, like, obviously asking, Chad, Kyle, and Peter, when you are feeling overwhelmed and what can I do? I want to know the answers to those questions, but I should also have the ability, after working with you for X number of weeks, months, whatever it may be, I should be able to predict that to a degree. I should be able to say it is unsustainable to have Chad working 70-hour weeks, and we need to do something about it. I don't know what the solution is, but something has to be about it.
Right.
And I should never have to go to Kyle and say, when was the right time to knock back your hours? Well, always was the right time.
Yeah. I think you're also doing a disservice. Like, if you're just okay and you're working your 60 and 70 and whatever just to do it and be a champion, it's a disservice to the organization because you're going to burn out.
Right.
And then they have nobody for a while because you have to recover. It's difficult. I did a project and it was 12 weeks of work. I did in 10 weeks.
Yep.
And it was over the holidays. And the people I worked with were all over the world, Amsterdam and Indonesia and Brazil. And so I was waking up at 4 a.m. and having my meetings, and then I'd work the rest of the day and into the night. And I worked on Christmas that year.
That's always a fun day to work.
Yeah.
You get to open presents on the day that you work, which is kind of nice. But if you're lucky enough to bring it.
Sorry, didn't mean to talk over you, Peter. But there's times when you're going to have to muscle through and work those extra, there's times in a project, like every project I've worked on, there's this crunch time. You're working extra time on it to get it over the finish line, and that's usually when that, those long hours happen, or when there's issues arise that have to be fixed. We're all willing to step up to the plate, but is it possible that stepping up to that plate doesn't have to happen like every week, every month? So how do you communicate that? How do you deal with that? How do you take the time and take a step back and go, okay, how can I mitigate this without seeming like I'm just, complaining and unwilling? And, that's the other thing is, are they doing a good job? They're not getting their work done. Like, they're not doing a good job because they're not getting the 20 hours of tasks a day done that we've put on them. And that can be kind of unfair.
And that's on my menu of things that can help me out, is like, okay, you're working out of the Jira board as I put out this fire, and you're going to help. You're going to up a little bit, and I'm going to work on this other stuff. And then when I come back, we can all drop back down to our normal background radiation levels, so to speak. Chad, just a question for you. Do you see the end of the tunnel right now?
It will start getting mildly better.
Should, right? And if it doesn't, then...
Yeah, I just think, I don't even know how to articulate this, but like, especially when we're going through situations where it sounds like, Brian's gone through at his client as consultants, we do need a better toolbox to deal with some of the stuff. I can't just take a day off. It's not realistic to say, oh, just take a couple of days off by yourself, right? Then sometimes hearing that almost sounds insulting, right? Like, come on.
And maybe they're saying just take the extra 30 hours off and get back to 40 for a week or two, right?
Right. But like, the way it comes across, and Brian, you tell me if I'm saying something wrong here, but like, for me, it almost comes across as if I'm victim blaming a little bit. Like,
it's flippant.
You're doing this to yourself, right? Like, why don't you just take a couple of days off?
Yes.
As if it's a new idea that I couldn't have fathomed on my own, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what?
There's a lot that goes into play there. I mean, one is something there was a thought that triggered this earlier. I mean, first, we have a very common, especially like a gendered debate that happens here about when you go to someone basically to vent, to complain, to just get some of that emotion out, and instead all you hear back is solutions, the things you should do to fix the situation. Not appropriate when someone is feeling this level of stress and anxiety. And this is one of the main things that I know I specifically avoid ever trying to say that, because we all understand that, yes, taking a day off is one of the best solutions you could probably enact. It's not realistic every single time. That's not how projects work, and it's not how individuals work. This is a very common debate in my own household. I am a person who's usually able to draw that boundary between work and personal more effectively than my wife is. She is often tied to her phone after working hours, and that's just her personality. So me telling her, just take a day off, it just entrenches us and prepares for a fight, because now I'm simply giving her information that she already knows, for one thing. She's not going to do anything with, for a second thing. And it's flippant. I think, Peter, you said that. It is.
That was Kyle, but yeah.
Kyle, I apologize. It was Kyle that said a great word for that. It is very flippant, and it feels very dismissive of the real problems. It's the equivalent of sweep it under the rug and ignore it for a day, which when the thing you're trying to ignore is like a squirrel running around your house, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Sometimes it comes with almost this it's like a corrective action to tell you that.
Yes.
Like, well, are you asking for help? Are you scheduling properly? Now it's questioning you and your abilities and how you're working and your willingness to have the humility to ask for help. It's if I knew how to ask. Yeah.
Right. I wouldn't be at the bottom of the hole digging and moving the dirt from one side to the other, but it's where I am. One thing to Chad's comment and Brian's reaction to it is, at the start of the conversation, if I'm going to vent to someone, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to vent to you right now. I'm not looking for a solution. I'm just looking for an outlet. Mm-hmm. And if somebody is venting to me, I will ask them, are you looking for a solution? Just want to vent for a while. Or after they're done venting, say, do you need any, Do you want any help trying to figure it out, or you got this? And it's really hard to not solution.
Yes.
As somebody who does nothing but solution technical things all day long.
I think it's human nature. I mean, someone comes to you with a problem, you want to help solve it. You want to be there for that person. And the first gut reaction is, here's what I think you should try. And I think it comes from a great place, but we have to recognize it's just not always appropriate to deliver that.
I think one of the best things for me when I'm going through this is we've got a friend, Claire, at work. And Claire occasionally will just reach out and be like, hey, you want to go to the bar, that one bar you like? And yes, obviously. Do you have time? No, but I will make time. And we go, and she just listens. And she does exactly like what we're saying, where she will, it's really just her listening and empathizing and not trying to a solution. And honestly, like for me sometimes, there are two things that are really kind of key for me. One is recognizing the effects that this has, not on me, but on the people around me, right? So when it was really
guy there.
Yeah, this guy. It won, but it got bad for me for a little bit where we were making plans at home and then constantly canceling them, right? We'd be like, oh, no, sorry, can't make it, right? As it is right now, a lot of the times when I'm out, it's me, whoever I'm with, and my laptop, right? You get Chad and his laptop when you take me out for a good time. Our friends back at the home, back at the mothership, actually went out of their way and got something for Andrea. And said, here's, sorry that Chad had to cancel so many plans. Here's a nice thing, right? And that was one of those small, silly things. I don't know how small it was. I didn't, price check it. But it was a silly little thing that made me feel really nice about, okay, they recognize that it's not just me, it's people around me. And then this guy gets dog treats once in a while. But he's usually in here with me anyway. So he's just spending more time with me. He's not walking as much, are we, buddy? No.
And he doesn't get to the baseball games as much or the dog park, right?
Yeah, we don't. Okay, hang on.
I also don't get out for walks as much.
It's
real stressful.
Everything drops, and then you get home and you're just exhausted. Mm-hmm. And all you want to do is plop, just be done for the day. It's like, I'm going to go home now. It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to go home and do some household chores. No, I'm going to go home and stop at the grocery store and make a stir fry with 56 ingredients for myself. No, I'm going to order DoorDash, which is expensive. So I'm hemorrhaging money by being foolish and ordering DoorDash, and things you have to intentionally watch out for. Is how easy it is to develop bad habits because of your overwhelmedness, which I have many.
The two biggest things that I've been running into lately are after, the workday itself kind of ends, the two main things that I contend with are there's kind of this trigger point somewhere in the evening where all of a sudden I get all these great ideas that I wish I had thought of during the day, and I want to go work on this. So then I've got to figure out, well, one, am I going to sacrifice the family time I do get right now to go do that? Also, am I approved to do it? I don't really have an approval to work much overtime right now. And so I really shouldn't be doing those things. And then the other one I run into is we have almost a 6-year-old, and am I being a good dad as a result of all of this? Because last night, I wasn't. Yesterday was a long, stressful day, and I was a tired, exhausted, uninterested, non-fun dad last night. And so now I get to carry that guilt into today, where I will try not to get further overwhelmed, so I will be a good dad tonight. We'll see how it goes. We're halfway through. So far, so good, but who knows? Who knows what the afternoon holds?
When things are going well, all over the office, having conversations, making people laugh, bringing the joy, smiling at people, listening to them. When I'm overwhelmed, I bring everybody down. We all care about each other. So when you see someone that's hurting and suffering, it's you feel for them. You have empathy, but it's not. It doesn't elevate the mood and make things fun.
Right.
And if you're the fun guy and you're no longer fun, like then it's like, what's wrong?
That's
What's
yes.
wrong?
And now you have yet another thing you have to answer for is that
I
now
need a
you
menu.
look like
You
you're
just
in a
say,
bad
I need a
mood.
menu.
Yeah.
Oh, that menu is such a great idea. A generic menu anybody can use
Right.
to ask for help.
We'll have to come up with one and put it in there.
It's a country kitchen placemat.
We could enact one of those systems like they have for dog leashes where, you know, if it's green, it means I'm friendly and approach me. If it's red, no, I bite, I lash out, you know.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's
What
a very,
about SDG
it's not an
mood
official
hats.
system, but
You
yeah.
could get mood hats.
Yeah, exactly.
So when the logo starts getting dark,
Do you guys think the ability we have today to work from home has made this worse? It has for me.
Absolutely.
Being
Yeah.
able to work
I mean-
from home for me, I do kind of miss the days where I literally had to be in the office to work, because then it was such a nice way to like time box, right?
yes.
And there were times, one famously where I ended up on the radio in the morning, where I worked too hard and I was in the office in the morning. And I can't tell that story on the podcast because it involves a lot of things that we don't talk about here. But I had a desk in an office, and I was, you work there, and once in a while you work so hard you fall asleep at your desk and blah blah blah. Your desk phone rings at 5:30 a.m. Hey, where are you? Well, you just freaking called me at my desk phone. These things don't move around yet. So, but like
They had different expectations of you being actually somewhere else at that time.
yeah, I think the expectations of folks was a little different. And I think, that lasted for me for like the first, and I started doing this type of thing in 1998.
Yep.
I had a solid probably like 6-7-ish years there without the ability to work from home, right? Without the mobility.
There was no laptop, right?
Yeah, laptops, like, they were expensive, and they weren't like right? They weren't developer machines, right?
No.
Not until like 05-ish, I think, did they really get decent enough where you could, I was thinking about like the golden age of ThinkPads for me was probably early 2000s, 2005-ish. And those were decent, like the X10s were decent enough to cart around and actually do stuff at home. And
Right.
I think that's the beginning of it. That was kind of the beginning of the work-life delineation just kind of blurred at that point.
Yeah.
Let me ask this question. When you were working in the office, how many days did you leave your laptop in the office?
I was like, I don't want to lug this around. Like, you just walk into the office. I almost feel like today, I can't imagine, I'd feel naked, right? Walking into the office just as this like dope that didn't have anything attached to it. And nobody.
Just as a person without baggage?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing something wrong when I leave things at my desk. I left my laptop at my desk at my client overnight once, and I was terrified that it was going to get stolen. And I'm thinking, we used to do this every day. People used to leave all kinds of stuff at their desk, and now I'm sweating because I left a company laptop at the company that owns it, and I'm worried about this. Like, it's been a complete, I almost said the word, it's been a complete shift in mentality.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I actually just did this.
My brain state had to change.
You're really coming up to that line, aren't you? I had to do this a couple of weeks ago at SDG. It was one of the days where the next morning I had to be in there at 5 a.m. That day, like, I was heading out to probably drink. I don't know. I was heading to the bar,
something like
on
that.
a motorcycle. And, I'm like, I'm just going to leave the laptop here so I can go out and not have to like cart it around with me. And then it felt strange. I'm like, I got home and I'm like, oh my God, what happens if somebody calls me right now?
Right.
With a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing because, when I started working, I had a 90 megahertz Pentium, I think it was, back in the day.
Sweet.
I don't even know how many megs of RAM it had, but it wasn't enough. I know that.
4.
But it was a desktop, and so you never took work home. You might have to stay late. You might have to come in a little early, but you'd recognize it, and people would recognize you being there or not being there, and others being there or not being there. And if you're the only one there, well, why are you there? Especially, as a new employee, like, who cares? Like, you don't know enough to be dangerous. But yeah, that has totally shifted. The urge to run downstairs and just do a little quick thing you got to fight that sometimes. Internal.
What motivates it though? Is it coming? So for me personally, I know that feeling comes from, I want to be the guy. I want to be the guy that everybody can rely on and ask a question of, even at 9 p.m. and they're going to get their answer. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable, but I do know that's where it comes from me. It's quite honestly, it's not about getting the job done. It's because I want to be perceived as that type of person.
Yeah.
It's people pleasing, right?
Sure.
Yep.
I think for me, it's like constantly trying to live up to expectations, right?
Sure.
Like, and maybe it's a little bit of what you're talking about, Brian, but I put a little bit of pressure on myself once in a while. Not just like deliver at the client, but then also do one or two extra things, for us as an organization. Lead a community and all this other stuff. And so I do kind of feel like for some of the people I really love and respect at SDG, I want to live up to what their expectation of me is in their head. And so that for me means, it's a lot of work. And I think the effect that it has on me, or has had a little bit on me, is, I don't know, my mind kind of gets mushy a little bit at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's not just the grain belt. And so like Peter said earlier, my focus level after 19 hours isn't what it is, the first 4.
Right.
There's the Balmer curve there is like hits for me at about 6 p.m.
And you can pull it off once or twice, but if you do it every day in a row, that Balmer curve starts getting worse and worse, right?
What's the Balmer curve?
Go ahead, Peter.
Come on.
Is that the level of intoxication it takes to come up with a good idea?
Yep.
Okay.
Productivity level, productivity. It's a ratio of productivity to intoxication.
Right. And it goes back to the old startup days, right? And startups another place that we haven't really touched on, but they have, that mentality comes with the word. That word startup is just loaded with I'm going to work 70 hours and I'm going to burn handle at both ends. I'm going to be on fire and I'm going to make my millions and be done. Except
if
sometimes,
I could real quick, because I went through that. It is a completely different thing, though. It was for me because it was my thing, and so I never felt that when I was when I was in startup mode for those first few years. And then once we landed the first client and this, I knew that was all for me, and so whatever I was sacrificing was going to benefit me in the long run.
Right.
Doing that without
And
I think
I'm
you're tying back to that concept. Go ahead, Peter, sorry.
I'm talking more about the employees, like employee number. Yeah, they've got some stock options. There's no guarantee of success. 90% of startups fail. So you're placing a lot of money on whatever number on the roulette wheel it is. And sometimes that really hits. Sometimes, the earlier you are in the process, you're just putting the money on a color on the roulette wheel rather than a particular number. I've been at places where you have stock options and I didn't change my car at all because they didn't quite. What were you saying, Brian?
I was going to say, it feels like for you, Chad, I wonder, does that draw back to the expectations motivational piece? It sounds like when you were a part of a startup or whatever it was, you weren't necessarily beholden to those same expectations that you're maybe now feeling. Is that maybe one of the core differences?
A little bit. Maybe a little bit. But when I did in startup mode, I was amongst lifelong friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still kind of the same shade of that. But in that world, the profits go to me, right? Like all of the benefits of all of that, 100% of that ends up in my pocket and in my more in my family's pocket, right? When we do this, I'm not going to say I don't mind the revenue sharing that we do get, but that's not what's motivating me completely to get.
No, that's not keeping you up till midnight, right?
Right.
And also, like I said, I just one of them. It's trying to live up to expectations, and then with the team I have now, not letting them down, and also to a large degree, it's situational for me. So Brian said, you got a 6-year-old at home. I've got a puppy, and a wife that's probably sick of looking at me anyway, and a 19-year-old daughter who will come down and just hang out with me. I don't necessarily have all that, and I try to absorb a little bit more of that when I can from my team around me, because they are in Brian's situation. They have little kids that they have to do, right? So like me doing a ridiculous amount of hours versus somebody that's got, two little ones around,
You're buffering for someone else.
Yeah.
It's 100% trying to buffer for other folks when I can, and pretending to get frustrated with them when they won't let me. But some of them they also. But like lots going into it.
I think the energy changes depending on where you are in the process of like starting something up. You're fighting to build something. You're in that building period. Ambition and dreams and hopes and all of that is helping energize you. It's the why can't I always have packing for a flight energy? That trip scramble you do where you're just getting stuff done, getting ready. But then other days it's like, I'm too tired to do that. Don't have that kind of energy or drive or motivation. But no, if you don't have ownership, if you're doing this for somebody else and you don't have any sort of remuneration or piece of the action, that sucks. It's like, why do I have a sleeping bag under my desk for this?
Ways to tell that you that you're working for a toxic company. They have pillows on hand for sleeping.
They have showers. Yeah.
But again, like we were saying, that's not a good thing, right? I mean, it's nice that it goes to your family or everything else, but there's times where the 6-year-old doesn't really care about the Matchbox or the video games. They'd rather have a little bit more. Like, I would trade this all for 2 hours of dad time,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, prior to joining SDG, the decade, my decade on my own, family was integrated into the company. We literally had, I had my kids, if they were on summer break or spring break, we made it fun for kids to come to the office and be around. And this was still before it was normalized. Working from home was a normal thing.
Right.
So we did that all the time. We had everybody's kids were there. I hate when companies say, "Hey, we're a family," but we did try to make it comfortable for you to bring in kids. We had big, huge screen that had a PS5 or a PS4 at the time, or 3 maybe even, an Xbox. So there's games going all the time. There was what do they call those little horrible little juice the bug juice? Remember bug juice? Is that still a thing for kids? Just little round container full of basically Kool-Aid.
Are you talking about the little barrels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little
bug
squeeze
juice
thing.
Yeah, we had that. We had Go-Gurt. We had all sorts of stuff for kids. Kids come to the office and
fruit
they were
roll-ups.
Right. I'm around irresponsible adults that are going to give me sugar.
So we're kind of getting to the point where we start winding it down. My last thought to throw out there is counting the cost of being overwhelmed. For me, it's okay. You're costing me creativity. I can't be creative when I'm just hammered with tasks. You're costing me joy and happiness in my job and how I feel about my company and my everything going on. Like, there's a cost in all these different ways. There's a cost, last night there was a cost for your family.
There's a physical health cost too.
And monetary cost of for me, not wanting to cook, just wanting to beeline home and plop down and veg out. And then it's like, well, I probably should eat something. And then God, junk food's really good.
And easy.
And cheaper. That's my repair tech. Oh, I'm going to mute for a second.
One thing that it would be, I think Brian and I are kind of soft working on this a little bit with one of the things we're on, but coming up with that menu for folks. What actually helps.
Before you need it.
Don't ask me for it when I need it. Have a list of things to do ahead of time and have the self-awareness to trigger those things early and even often, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
Why, and for me, it's I already mentioned a couple of mine, silly things for the people around me that are missing out on time with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is a thing that you just be totally aware of the language that you're using. I don't want to hear corrections. I don't want to hear take a day off. I probably don't want to hear the first thing that comes to mind when somebody wants to help me with
right.
getting through what I'm getting through.
That's a good rule of thumb. I really like that. Because the first thing is the easiest one.
Yeah.
Which means you've also thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Any kind of thought, effort, and actually, and the effort actually kind of matters to me a little bit, almost as much as everything else, right? Like when you're going through it and somebody, send you a high five or a gift, like that took you 5 minutes. Throw something into it, put your back into it.
And people that are on your team should be able to identify things that they can do to help you out, that they can take off your plate or whatever jargon you want to call. But I need you to do this for me until I tell you to stop doing it. and have that self-filtering to just let something go. And that's, I don't know, Chad, I have a hard time letting anything go. I want to be the one doing all the work and I want to be the one taking the brunt of the abuse or challenges because I've got experience and I know to just let it go.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of the mindset that all of consultants have already.
Right.
Is that we want to get the job done.
The what?
And we want to do well. And I think that's, and so we do, and that's awesome. Now I have somebody that can get the job done. I'm going to give them more jobs to get done because I have all these jobs that need to be done.
That was something I wanted to say about with Chad's statement about expectations too. Expectations only go down when you are doing a bad job. And so if you continuously meet expectations, they don't just stay there. Like they keep going and you just enter into this cycle that the only way to break out of it is something dramatic or a slow degradation of your work. Those are the only two ways to really escape that cycle. And that's a terrible place to have to put someone. Let them figure it out themselves, for one thing.
Well, and if you put it on the person that's overwhelmed, if you put it on them as their problem, like, well, we need to meet about this. Right. You come in with that, that tone. Mm-hmm. Of, I'm going to get taken to the woodshed now because I missed something because I'm overwhelmed and it slipped through the cracks and now I have failed you in some way.
Yep.
Yeah. This has been very cathartic. I think we need to do 3 more of these and we'll work on the menu and we'll try to get some words removed from the dictionary and vocabulary.
So menu, share, vent and tell the person that you're venting. That'll help.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing here. I think that's great.
Knowing who you're working with, right? Like oftentimes all I really want is to sit down at a bar, have a beer, with a person who's not somebody on my project. Like, yeah, this is what I'm going through. And also I want to do that with a person that isn't, this is why I like doing this with consultants a lot, right? Because I try as hard as I can to connect with consultants outside of my own little bubble and my own little project. Because I want to build up like this kind of like emotional vocabulary around what we go through, so that we can come up with ways to not continuously repeat the same things to the best that we can. So like I love hanging out with the CMs. I especially love hanging out with them when we can both have a drink and relax and talk through things. That's my little love language, is sitting at a bar next to somebody, letting them listen, be it our consultant managers, or also other consultants on other projects, to just commiserate and get through. That is huge for me, and it's I'll take advantage of those offers for help early and often as much as I can.
All right,
so that should be on your menu for sure.
Yeah,
that should be on the menu. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go let my tech in the door, and so he can do some warranty repair before he runs away. So I think with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.